How's it going, everyone? I'm Keegs, and today we're going to be talking about Ahsoka Tano. Now, this is a character that I absolutely love, and she's been with the Star Wars universe for such a long time, and I know so much about her that sometimes I forget a lot of people probably don't know a lot about her if they didn't watch the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, and maybe their first appearance of seeing her was in The Mandalorian when she gave Grogu to Luke. So today we're going to be going through all of her major events, where she came from, and how she came to be where she is by the time you saw her in The Mandalorian. Ahsoka is a character that a lot of people didn't like at first, but that's the beauty of this character, is that they developed her so well, and every mistake she made, she learned from and evolved as a person, and really by the end of the Clone Wars, she was really one of the most loved characters in the series. Ahsoka Tano is of the species Togruta, born on the planet Sahili, where she was able to use her Force abilities to save her village from a fake Jedi. From there, Jedi Master Plo Koon found her and saw her Force abilities, and ended up taking her back to the Jedi Temple and have her trained as a Jedi. A few years later, when Ahsoka was 14 years old, Master Obi-Wan Kenobi requested a new Padawan after his Padawan Anakin had been knighted, so Ahsoka was sent to the Battle of Christophsis, though afterwards Master Yoda assigned Anakin to be her master instead.
I'm at your service, Master Kenobi, but I'm afraid I've actually been assigned to Master Skywalker.
What? No.
The two of them were actually very similar with their impulsiveness, and at first the two really didn't get along at all. Over the course of time, though, they began to foster a growing respect for each other, and eventually Ahsoka ended up being someone that Anakin trusted the most, likely his third most trusted person right behind Padme and Obi-Wan. Over the next several years, Ahsoka would go on to command battles in the Clone Wars, as well as take on missions as part of her Jedi training, such as helping younglings to find their kyber crystals and construct their lightsabers. Many of her missions were with the 501st Legion, where she would eventually grow a close friendship with the clone trooper Captain Rex, who served under General Anakin Skywalker. Towards the end of the Clone Wars, a Jedi temple was bombed, and Ahsoka was blamed for this terrorist act. Though she was innocent and previously maintained a heroic record, the Jedi Council revoked her membership in the Jedi Order and placed her on trial. Her master would go on to uncover a plot by a secretly practicing dark side apprentice, Barriss Offee, and place her under arrest. With this evidence, he was able to prove Ahsoka's innocence and clear her name. Anakin really went off the rails here, and it shows not just the dark side in him, but just really how much he cared for Ahsoka, but also how badass he was when he taps into the dark side. After the trial, however, Ahsoka began to question the Council, seeing as to how fast they turned on her, and she decided to leave the Jedi Order in an effort to figure out her path forward and if she really even belonged to be with the Jedi. Anakin pleaded with her in a heartbreaking moment to stay, but ultimately she decides she just couldn't be there anymore.
They're asking you back, Ahsoka. I'm asking you back.
This indirectly hurt Anakin a lot, as it's just one more close friend that he ended up losing, and likely had some impact on his decision to turn to the dark side. Ahsoka wandered around for a while just trying to survive when she was eventually approached by the Night Owls. These were former members of the Mandalorian group Death Watch. Initially, she was very apprehensive, since the last time they had met, she was kidnapped and almost executed by the group. But after listening to their story, they told her that Maul was on Mandalore and had overthrown the government, and eventually convinced her to reach out to the Jedi Council in order to gain their assistance in dealing with Maul. The Jedi Order and the Mandalorians were actually able to set aside their differences for the time being in order to track down a mutual enemy, and decided to do a mutual assault. Although it had been a couple years by this point, Anakin had still been maintaining Ahsoka's lightsabers, and the 501st Legion had marked their helmets to honor her return as a gesture of showing how much they really respected her as a commander. Ahsoka ends up capturing Maul and leaving with the 501st Legion to return him to Coruscant. During their trip, though, the unthinkable happens. Order 66 is executed. Rex tries to fight this directive at first, and he does better than basically any clone out there because of the close bond he shared with Ahsoka, but ultimately he succumbs to it and attempts to kill her. Now you might be thinking there's technically a loophole here since Ahsoka isn't actually a Jedi since she left the Order, so this order shouldn't really apply to her. But it's no surprise that Palpatine knew just how close she was to Anakin, and it's revealed that the 501st Legion was given an additional order specifically calling out Ahsoka Tano to be executed.
Ahsoka Tano is no longer a Jedi. Hasn't been for some time. Sir, you said yourself we're under special order from Darth Sidious to eliminate Ahsoka Tano.
Ahsoka frees Maul to create a distraction for her while she removes the chip from Rex's head. She learns that this directive was given to all of the clones, and she immediately realizes the implications of this order. With the help of Rex, they then take the Imperial cruiser down, killing the entirety of the 501st that was sent on that mission. Rex's brothers and Ahsoka's friends, they spent time burying each and every one of them, after which Ahsoka forsakes her lightsabers and goes into hiding. She turns up on an outer rim planet named Thebeska, where she takes the alias Ashla, which is actually the name of a moon orbiting a Jedi world, so it's a bit on the nose if you ask me. But she becomes a mechanic for a local family until the Empire shows up one day and she decides she needs to run from the Empire. She leaves behind a young girl that she knows is Force sensitive, but she decides that it's too late for that girl and she just moves on. To me, this is kind of the lowest point for Ahsoka because really leaving someone behind is something that she would absolutely never have done in the Jedi Order, and I think it was probably very hard on her to actually have to turn away from someone in need, especially a Force sensitive person that probably reminds her of many of the younglings that died in the Jedi Temple. Much like Obi-Wan, she's kind of just a broken woman that doesn't see any point in living or carrying on, just how Obi-Wan did at the beginning of that series. She doesn't really feel like these people are her responsibility, and she just needs to keep her head down and not interfere even if people around her are suffering. She ends up going to the moon Rada, and she becomes a local mechanic there as well. Unfortunately, the Empire is going to show up there as well, and this time she decides, hey, they're not after me. It's okay. I can just keep my head down and just do my job and everything will be okay. They'll eventually just not look for me or find me. But really what the Empire does is what they always do, and they start taking too many resources from the local people and the people start to suffer. But now Ahsoka's kind of involved in the middle of it because she's one of those people that's suffering, and she decides that she's going to start just helping people little by little. Helping all these people, though, is the crux of the Jedi, and the Empire does take note of it and realizes that she is a former Jedi. They reach back to Imperial Command, and they end up sending an Inquisitor after her, the sixth brother. Just before the sixth brother arrives, though, Ahsoka decides that it's time to go, and she has already helped too much, and it's just time for her to get off planet and just leave, essentially, again abandoning a group of people. At the same time, Bail Organa was keeping tabs on her movement, though, and sends R2-D2 after her. She doesn't go back with R2-D2 to Organa, but eventually she does end up meeting with him, where he tells her of a rebellion that's been forming. She says she doesn't want to be a general in the army, but she is willing to help. Ironically, he sends her back to Rada to deal with the Inquisitor that was killing all of her old friends in an effort to lure her back to the moon. She quickly makes some lightsaber hilts and sets out to find some kyber crystals, but sees that Ilum is being mined by the Imperial army, so she decides just to go back to Rod and is actually able to take on the sixth brother, ended up blowing up his lightsaber on him and killing him. And then she takes the kyber crystals out of the lightsaber and does what they kind of call healing the kyber crystal, and it drains the red color out of it, and they end up being just completely clear kyber crystals, giving her white lightsabers. She ends up helping the farmers resettle after she takes care of the Empire there, and then goes back to Bail Organa and becomes their chief intelligence officer, taking the codename Fulcrum. She ends up helping many different rebel cells, one of the key ones being the Spectres from the animated show Star Wars Rebels. She helps this group in particular though because this group has a former Jedi Padawan, Kanan Jarrus, and his newly taken Padawan, Ezra Bridger. During her time with the Spectres, she goes to a Sith temple where she encounters her old master, now turned Sith Lord Darth Vader. The two battle in what I can only describe as one of the best moments in all of Star Wars. This scene alone is enough for me to recommend Star Wars Rebels to anyone that wants to see an incredible lightsaber battle, but also one that has so much weight and meaning behind it.
Ahsoka. Ahsoka.
Anakin.
During the battle though, the temple collapses on top of Vader and Ahsoka, and it's only later that we learn that Ezra was able to enter what's called the World Between Worlds, which is basically just time traveling, and he sees the fight with Ahsoka and is able to pull her out just before the temple collapses on her and Darth Vader kills her. After being saved, she feels like she needs some time, still being shaken from her encounter with Vader. She leaves the rebellion, and it's not until after the Empire is destroyed that we see Ahsoka again. Shortly before the events of Episode 4 though, Ezra and Thrawn get warped into hyperspace, never to be seen again. After the Empire is brought down, Sabine Wren, one of Ezra's old crewmates among the Spectres, sets out to find him with the help of Ahsoka. Also, I just wanted to mention how awesome this white cloak is, like very Lord of the Rings Reborn as a literal guardian vibes. 5 years after that, Ahsoka turns up in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and we learn that she's looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn, presumably still looking for Ezra. Initially, she tries to kill Mando since she just assumes that he's a bounty hunter coming after her. But once he reveals that it was Bo-Katan that sent him to find her, she immediately recognizes that Grogu is right next to him. She has a deep conversation with Grogu, which is how we learned his name, and we can now stop calling him Baby Yoda, and during her time with the Mandalorian, she helps to relocate Grogu to train with Luke. This is actually the first time we see Ahsoka interact with Luke, which is pretty great, and I'd really love to see more of that. She left off very ambiguously answering Luke's question of whether or not he'll ever see her again, and she just replies, maybe. So I think it's safe to assume that we're probably going to get another interaction between the two at some point in the future. But for now, that's going to wrap up pretty much everything we know so far about Ahsoka Tano, and she's getting her own series on Disney Plus in 2023. She's likely going to be teaming up with Sabine to locate the missing Jedi Ezra Bridger, so I really can't wait to see what adventures they go on in trying to locate him and track him down. I hope you feel a little more caught up with Ahsoka Tano now and who she is and why she's so important to the Star Wars universe. And if you really like some of the stuff that you heard here, then I highly encourage you to go watch the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels or even read the Ahsoka novel, because they're all excellent. And I think they're going to play major roles in the upcoming Star Wars lore and the new stuff we learn, especially in her series that's coming out next year. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm Keegs. I will catch you all next time for some more Star Wars content.